All right, everybody, welcome in. Some folks are trickling in here. First thing I'll say, if you've seen me on these before, is please turn your cameras on. I certainly don't like talking at a screen, and Steve would love to see your smiling faces too. So if that's a possibility, are we even in the format where it allows that, Meg?
Yep, they can turn on their cameras.
All right, cameras on, mics on. Let's make this collaborative best that we can. Hopefully that's an option on other people's ends. We don't see them on here. They're all as viewers, though. Interesting. There we go. I think there we go. It does work. Walt, thanks, dude.
Hey, Walt.
All right, so I'm going to kind of do a little intro housekeeping item. So yeah, today, super stoked. I've got Steve here. He runs a company called Agent Legend, which you may have heard of. They've been around for almost a decade now, and have been one of the leading kind of tech partners in the Follow Up Boss ecosystem and world. I know they integrate with a bunch of others too. But real quick, on these calls, if you've been on these before, jump in, unmute yourself, cameras on if you can. We don't care if you forgot your makeup today. I forgot mine too. So, real quick housekeeping item though, wanted to mention that we have two in-person coaching collective events coming up. The first one is bookmarked for August 29th in Dallas, and that is the day after Tom Ferry Summit. So if you're going to go to Tom Ferry, then stay an extra day. These are super inexpensive. If you're not going to Ferry and you want to go to Dallas, we'll have you too. I'm going to share this link, but hang on one quick sec, and I'll show you guys. The second one is in Vegas. Again, this is the day following Unlock, Zillow Follow Up Boss Unlocks event, which we did last year in person. That was a phenomenal day. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat. Tickets are on a wait list right now. Very limited seats, but they're in person. And the one we did in Vegas was phenomenal. It was just a great time. We had 80-ish people in there. Me, Shay, Jeff, Elena, and Lisa. And we had a ton of takeaways from that. So again, if you're able to go to Dallas or Vegas, we'd love to have you there. I'm going to put it in the chat, and I'm going to stop talking because I want to get Steve on here to start talking about what he's got cooking over with Agent Legend, with respect to really narrowing down, who to talk to, why to talk to them, how to talk to them. And from there, Steve, I'll let you kind of take it away. And again, folks, unmute, ask questions, hit the chat, and we'll make sure to keep this as collaborative and informative as possible.
Great. Thanks, Chase. Yeah, pleasure to meet everybody. Walt, you especially, since you have your camera on. But yeah, like Chase kind of teed up, we basically work with brokers, teams, solo agents as their communications arm. The topic we're going to break down today is like the core problem that we see universally across the teams and everybody that we're working with in terms of who the heck do you focus today's attention on, right? We have a lot of vehicles that are out there that help generate leads. We have a lot of vehicles out there that help you with the ongoing nurturing and getting people to open emails, click on emails, and a lot of activity flowing through your respective systems. But distilling down and figuring out of the people that are engaging with you, who's actually somebody that your sales team, or if it's yourself as the main salesperson, who you should be calling, versus those that you can set up for ongoing nurturing and continuing to bring them back to your storefront until they are actually ready. We all know that it takes a while for leads to actually convert, between 12 to 18 months from the moment they're generated in your system. And so staying at top of mind is key, but also making sure that you're really efficient and profitable with that outreach is critical. So that's what we're going to break down today. I got some slides here I'm going to share here. So give me a second and we'll breeze through these, and then everybody just chime in, ask questions, any rebuttals. I'm all for it because I love the engagement. But let's break it down. So
well, the cool thing you mentioned too, Steve, and I want to hear the rest of this obviously, but I mean, time is the most precious asset that we all have, right? So if you have an overload of leads or an open house and you've got 37 inquiries or whatever it is, or a database that's growing out of control, being able to then, hey, I've only got an hour and a half today. I've got 3 appointments later, but I've got an hour and a half I can carve out. who in the heck should I call aside from my A's, B's, and C's or whatever. This would be pretty cool to see what you got going on.
Yeah. So let me tee this up. So I pulled all this together. These are whatever communities that you're in. There is no shortage of shiny, great objects, great platforms that are out there. We're one of them, right? And so these all do a really great job of activity. They're going to keep us busy. And really at the end of the day, we have this, our cups are overfilled with opportunity or perceived opportunity. Those lists that build up over time that at some point become very overwhelming. And for those of us that are the ones cutting the checks to generate those opportunities, conversion is the name of the game. And so you guys may have heard of this term in the past, but I love the way that this is articulated in the form of, we really have like this last mile problem where you can generate the lead. You can have all of the great systems and processes and automations to nurture that opportunity. But at the end of the day, a salesperson has to be involved at some point. And that is where the conversion problem happens. And our thesis is around, well, that's because there's so much going on every single day. I got my current clients, I got my past clients, I have my personal life, and then I have all of the ding factors that are popping up in my database. If I look at my phone right now, I get a buzz every time somebody opens an email, clicks an email, all of that stuff. It can be distracting. And so what we're going to work through today is like the framework of what I recommend for all of our clients when we're setting up their communication strategy of how we can help them. And that's really, we distill it into the S3 formula. It's speed, segmentation, and smart follow-up. Chase already teed up the segmentation part, which is really our sweet spot. But in its truest sense, let's just start today with, from the moment a lead is generated, speed is critically important. I'd imagine that of the people that are on this call, especially if you're working with the Real Estate Coaching Collective, you probably have this nailed with some sort of automation. But Agent Legend, we do a ton of secret shopping, not only for our existing customers, for our prospects when they are scheduling a demo. We go out and we test to understand, do they have this basic principle figured out? And that's the speed formula. We find, this is actually from a study that Mike Delpret had published. If we have a link to him, if you know of him, we'll try to find that and follow up with him, but he is a wealth of knowledge. So some of these stats actually come from him around the fact that almost 50% of online inquiries aren't even answered. They're ignored. And that in and of itself is like the lowest hanging fruit that we all have. The ability to establish a relationship from the moment a customer walks through your digital storefront, that lead form, to be able to have either a live salesperson, an ISA, or some sort of automation with a text message, an email, a call that can engage that prospect and make sure that they know they're taken care of is critically important. And so the other data point, which is fascinating, is like, you need to be responding immediately. I think in today's day and age, that is a non-negotiable. The length in which it takes for somebody to actually get back to you, on average, from Mike's publication, was around 39 minutes. So that may have been okay 10 years ago, but today we live in a world, and you know this, our prospects, you know this, it's immediacy. They will go and click on another property. They will go and submit another form. And so I love this slide because if we've all seen Talladega Nights, if you ain't first, you're last. And so immediately responding, and even if you're not available, just making sure that they know you'll be in touch with them. What is the best way to get in touch with them? And now you have the speed side of things taken care of.
Well, and remember too, Steve, and this is great. When you're talking about online leads specifically, Facebook, Google, LS, whatever they are, I mean, they have no clue who you are, right? So that's already a big enough hurdle as it is. And if you're not in front of them in some capacity in under 60 seconds, let alone 39 minutes, they've already forgotten what they clicked on, where they were when they clicked on it, what the house was, or what the ad said, because you don't have any mind share with them as it is. So that's why I think speed is so important, because they're going to forget. Yeah, and if you're in Follow Boss, if you can get them outreach to them when that little green dot on the top right corner says on your website right now, like that's the sweet spot, because they're still browsing on wherever you have them. So that's crucial.
Yep, absolutely. And the key with that, most people, when they get that lead, we see it, they're trying to schedule that showing, get a coffee date scheduled with them. Those are big things, like to actually see if that person, where they fall in the path to purchase. That's this next piece that we are which is vital. I equate it to like if you were interviewing somebody or you were interviewing with a company and you were on Zoom and you're also trying to gather facts behind the scenes to learn more about who that person is. And that is big too, because if you now know the information about that prospect and you're gathering facts, and you have a really good script in terms of, most people just ask, tell me more about the property that you're looking for. Tell me more about the actual products. But Sales 101 is, how do you humanize that experience? How do you learn more about their life? How do you learn more about the human side and personalize that interaction, and making sure that you're taking great notes, because it'll be a wealth of knowledge in your database, which we get to is don't just classify these people as leads. There is a clear delineation between an SQL and an MQL. And so I always ask folks, like, do we know what an SQL and an MQL is? And I don't know if anybody wants to chime in on that, but most people just assume everybody is a SQL stands for.
Someone jump in the chat. Wait, Steve. Someone jump in the chat. Who's paying attention?
For 20 minutes, if I have to. All right, I'm giving it.
All right.
SQL. Everybody assumes that a lead that fills out a form is a sales qualified lead. That's when you just sick your sales team on that person with the understanding that, hey, this is somebody that wants to buy property. That's not the case, guys. So 90% of your leads when they enter your system are actually MQLs. Those are marketing qualified leads. That's something that, whether it was your beautiful new listing that generated a form fill for somebody that wants to check out the photos, the nosy neighbor, but you've done the work now and they're in your database. And so understanding and delineating between those two and taking a step back in that initial speed, because now you've gotten to that prospect first. You have the first at bat to establish a relationship with them, not just asking, tell me more about the property search that you have going on. Tell me more about you, your family, what you do for work. What do you like to do outside of work? Those are key things. Tag those in your database so that you can now, as your database continues to grow, create, if you're your follow-up boss user, you can create now smarter lists, right? Distilling them down, ABCs, I heard Chase, right? Like those are really great things as you're identifying that definition around who's a sales lead versus a marketing qualified lead. We define that a little bit differently, but now being able to develop content and also to personalize your communication based on that initial conversation that your sales team got to have. There's an abundance of data and information in that conversation. Store that in your database. And now it allows you to nurture this prospect really, really well over that 12 to 18 month period so that you can convert that person. Because back to earlier, you're going to have more shiny objects, new leads entering your system every single day. But now the pool of those aged leads, the pooled leads that most people assume they're dead or they're stale, they're collecting dust. That is of this topic today. What I want everybody to take away from is that is the gold mine that we want to help you with. And
you were talking a second ago too about what they do for work, personalizing or humanizing the lead. And that's what I've told my team for a while is, you have to, all these leads are in multiple systems, right? They're in ours and probably 3 or 4 others, market dependent, right? Yep. So it's the speed to lead's important, but also the humanization that I've, kind of talk about is okay, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Anaheim. Okay. I mean, you don't need me for that, right? You've got Zillow, you got Redfin, whatever else. And so the other 7 agents you're talking to. So why 3 bedrooms? Why 2 bathrooms? Where in Anaheim? Oh, by that school. Why that school? Oh, we have a daycare on the corner. Okay. What's the daycare? How old's your kid? The second you can get past the criteria and into the why or the motivation, then you have the rapport and the trust. But 3-2 Anaheim under $1 million, great. Okay. You know what I mean? Because you have no reason for them to call you back. So that's, again, just my version of it.
Yeah, I love it. And there you can ask the proxy around, hey, when are you looking to move? But I don't think many consumers know. It's like they're opportunistic. That's why they're perusing the site. So being able to clearly delineate, and this is just the example I like to illustrate, is most databases are going to look like that on the left. They're all jumbled together. Maybe you have the ABC setup, but as it relates to your team, your company, we want your team focused. Who you should be talking to every single day should be those people that are in that green quadrant at the bottom. And how do you know that? Well, we go back to the slide with all those great platforms that you can choose to elect, right? That are going to get people coming back to your site. They're going to get the requisite clicks, the conversations. But at the end of the day, that is more the what behind what they're doing. They're clicking on emails. They're checking out properties. But we all know a lot of people are tire kickers and like to have, sit on the couch late at night and just peruse properties or check out their neighbors' properties. Actually understanding the behavior that you can't see and having that visibility. Companies like us do that, where we are able to now bring that information into the fold. But if you don't use us, just make sure that your team is segmenting to whatever capacity that you can. And that's where we go back to the conversations that you're having. Don't just take them at face value. Get your team to enter that information into your system, and then have somebody that is fluent, can review that information, and now create a much more predictable revenue engine, which is your database. It needs to be set up in a way that doesn't just store data. If you have more than 250, 1,000 contacts, you've invested time or money to accumulate those. Start harvesting that information, and now leveraging the great tech and the great resources that Chase and your team provide. You can now make it more predictable and scalable, and one day transferable. If you decide to move on and do something else, well, hand that asset off, because you don't want it to just be a dead asset at the end of the day. So the final arm to this is the follow-up. So now I've talked to the person, great, basic sales 101. I've segmented them. Now we're getting into the smart follow-up. And this is that old adage of like, I got a smart list with 250 people in it. Where do I start? The agent, when we ran our team here in Minneapolis, they didn't know where to start. And we as team leaders were saying, well, we're continuing to buy you leads. Well, they want the new, fresh, off-the-shelf leads, those great ones. Okay, great. But you need to continue to follow up and reach the right people with the right message at the right time. That gets into the segmentation. And so what we see a lot of in our space, we are a communications platform. We help our customers send outbound messages and also field inbound messages, all stored within their database. These are just some screenshots of some of the automations or some of the messages that are more of a shotgun approach to nurturing long term, which if you're a consumer and you put yourself in the consumer's shoes, would you respond to messages that are similar in nature to this, where I'm just checking in? Like, okay, great, you're just checking in, cool. In this case, I took some screenshots of one that literally just didn't even have my name in there. It was my phone number. So immediately, because you're now because you haven't successfully segmented me, I may be in that quadrant 4 that you saw in that funnel illustration, and you're trying to sell me. Eventually, I'm going to get fatigued. I'm going to unsubscribe. And back to Chase, your point, I'm in 4 other databases because I'm getting hit by God only knows how many people. And so the folks that follow up intentionally, the folks that reach me at the right time are the ones, and over that long term, most of those other competitors, I'm going to unsubscribe from, or they forget about me. I go into the lead pond that no one's working. And so even though that person paid for me to be in their database, they're not doing anything with me. Whereas the team that has the focus and intentionality around that long-term strategy here are the ones that can win. And so this is a great slide. If you want to take a screenshot of it, of how we break down the types of content as you think through, like, okay, how do I continue to stay top of mind within my organization? So irregardless of if you have a sales function and a marketing function, or if you're the marketing and sales function within your business, once you've segmented, you now have the requisite assets to ongoing nurture and to bring those folks back. So the blogs and email newsletters, those folks that are more awareness-based messaging, to continue to make sure that they come to your site. If you paid to get them there versus bouncing back to your competitor's site, right? You want them to get value-added content. Chase, you mentioned that example around the kids that are looking for a certain property with a daycare nearby. If you've taken the requisite notes and you've built a good segment of maybe young families between estimated ages of 25 to 35. We live in a chat GPT world. Go into chat GPT and say, hey, I need an email, a 6-day drip email campaign that I can send out to that universe of people in my specific market around the best daycares to look for. And then, well, guess what? Now real estate is part of that conversation. And you continue to layer those things on. Testimonials as they continue to look for who's the authority in my market? Who should I work with when I got 10 agents, my neighbor's an agent, my sister-in-law is an agent. Who should I work with? Who are the trusted go-tos that I need to be leveraging when it's time? And then it is when they're at the bottom of the funnel, that indicator. So maybe it's that first-party data that you guys are gathering, the email clicks, the property views, for example, right? When they're showing that behavior, they're in that A stage. That is where your sales team focuses. Nowhere else. Right? You want them going out and networking. That takes time and energy to do. You want them doing other revenue generating activities. And one revenue generating activity is going to be calling, dialing. Who do you dial? And now if you know within your database versus choosing leads at random, you're going to be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, and ultimately the business is more profitable. So you don't have to continue to buy more and more leads. That's a great, you can do that. But if you first solve how do we increase that conversion, get it from a 0.5% to a percent, that small bump in incrementality makes your bottom line better, makes your agent's bottom line better. And it avoids those conversations around like, these leads suck. No, the leads don't suck. It's because you're trying to sell people who aren't ready yet, because you don't know that yet, because we haven't set up our database in a way that sets everybody up for success. And so that's how we think about it when we're working with our clients. I'm not going to go on the post funnel, but most people think a past client is a past client. No, they're a lead. They are a lead. So what is your experience after that is done? How do you get and make sure that you increase the lifetime value of that lead so they don't forget about you over time? So that's how we think about it. And then here is really how you think about that communication, that omni-channel communication strategy that you deploy out. So if we work our way from the right to the left, it is where do you spend your money and time? And so email is a really efficient vehicle to be able to get that communication out. Direct mail, letters to those as they're warming up to continue that low cost option. And then you start getting into the communications. If you're in, some of the communities, or if you've seen me, you always hear me talking about like, don't just spray and pray with text messages or voicemail or anything else. It costs a lot of money, right? There is money involved with that. And so that's the shotgun approach. How do we make sure that your messages are reaching the right people at the right time and you're deploying the right messages to them? So ultimately, you're the one on that beautiful couple that's smiling, looking at their phone, because guess what? You had the longevity in mind, and now you're reaching them with continued value. And now, hey, I'm ready. Let's go out and let's work together. And you're not competing for that business over time.
One of my favorite, on that last slide, Steve, one of my favorite things to do, and I don't know if my team likes it, but I do. So, you can acquire addresses very easily. From your lead comes in, you get free services, you've got enrichment services now. I mean, the handwritten note with a hand addressed front and an actual forever stamp on the top corner has a 100% chance of being opened. Not 20, not 50, not 80, 100% chance of being opened. And the message is nothing revolutionary, right? Hey, Steve, Chase for the Whitney team here. We're trying to reach you regarding your home search. We're trying to reach you regarding one of your Main Street. Curious about your plans. Would love to connect. Here's my cell phone number. And you sign it. 100% open rate, and no one else is doing it. So it costs you 72 cents, right?
Love it. Yeah. And those are
super old school.
And how many of those can you execute? Well, that gets down to how many can you execute regularly. And that gets back to the importance of like not eating the whole elephant, like getting away from that. Like I live that world of where do I start in my database? And that's what this whole conversation is about. What we preach is really that rifle approach. And you have the data. You guys, everybody on this call is collecting a tremendous amount of data. You need something that can harvest it and make it more actionable within your business. So I love that point, Chase. So I'm going to leave everybody with an exercise, because I think you guys even preach this too, Chase, and what you're doing. I encourage you all, obviously, audit your own process, but go out and secret shop your competitors, those that are in your market that are either best in class. Maybe they promote that they're best in class. We do this for anybody who's on a billboard, anybody who is a marketing engine that generates leads. See what they're doing. And it's fascinating because they're spending the money and not all of them have it figured out. So there's opportunity there. They don't even have the basic principles. They're just marketing. It's random acts of marketing. There's opportunity for those who can clean that up. But the ones that do it really well, you can glean some insight off of how they get in touch with you right away. They interact with you in the way that you want to be interacted with. So do I prefer email communications? Do I prefer text? Do I prefer a call, right? Do I prefer a handwritten letter? Those are all fascinating ways in which to engage with your audiences. Take note of that and then implement within your practice. Make the small little changes and tweaks within your business immediately, and then you have to measure it. And so what we measure is, hey, what is the overall outbound effort look like? Am I making less calls, less emails, less texts, less of that energy and effort? And am I also still booking at a similar rate, appointments, having similar conversations as well? And those are the things that actually will move the needle. I'm not saying stop prospecting, right? I'm saying we got to get smarter with our prospecting efforts. And we live in an age, like, go Google AI and the incrementality that vehicle is making for every business, but also data. Like, data is available at our fingertips. That was, Chase, like our seismic shift of getting away from being just a straight communications platform. Right. I mentioned the costs associated with just being a messaging platform. We just enable our users to do exactly what we talked about in this presentation: is speed, done, easy button. We got the campaign. You guys have that available. Click the link and you can have that free of charge. Use it. Second is the segmentation. That's where we really flex our superpower. So I'm just going to, Chase, if you don't mind, just kind of tee this up.
I want you to share the lead intelligence stuff, which is fascinating to me. So I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So effectively, and I know we got just a couple minutes here. So what we do is we audit all of our customers' databases. What we do is we are taking in your local market. I'll use Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're looking at the data that those people who recently bought or sold properties, and then we're comparing that to all of the leads in whoever's database, respectively. And now we're telling them, these people, we segment the database based on their offline behaviors. So all of our customers, all of y'all have the first party data. That is in whatever system that you're using. We just bring in that added layer of helping you understand the why behind that lead. Information.
Can you explain the first party data versus offline data in case someone on here might not know what that means?
Yeah. First party data is effectively anything that's flowing through your system in the form of interaction with a lead. So you have your website is a great use case. So if you mentioned that green button that shows if they're active, that's first party data. If they're viewing properties, what properties they're viewing, what properties they're clicking on, the hand raisers, I always equate that. That's first party data points. What we preach is, great, that person, we got to define what a hand raiser actually is. They did something, but they don't necessarily need to, they're not maybe ready to be sold to yet. And when I say maybe, we bring in that layer of insight with the data. And so what we do on our end is we're analyzing over 1,700 offline data points that all pulled together, plugged into your database. All we do is we segment it, exactly what I illustrated before. We show our users who are the people in that quadrant 1. So when they're thinking about the 10,000 people they have in their database, the elephant image, where do I start? We distill that down. In its truest sense, we do that. And then it's a matter of, how do we communicate with them? All different sorts of business models that we work with. If they have a team that's able to tackle that, great. They can go and engage with those leads. But the other item, Chase, as you're aware, right, is we bring in that persona side, which is also vitally important as you think about understanding who that lead is. If you haven't gotten a hold of that lead, you don't know, other than a name, email, and phone number. Because we know who that person is on that matching that we're able to do, where we can understand, is this a baby boomer who has no kids in their household and is making less than $60,000 a year? That's a profile that we provide. Versus, is it a millennial with 3 kids making over $300,000 a year and prefers to only engage with you online? Because those behaviors are showing that. We've pumped that into whatever system that you use, and we'll use Follow Up Boss because I think that's kind of the main audience here, right? think about your collections, think about your smart lists. We make them smarter. And once we've made them smarter, the data is all at your fingertips. You now know who to focus on. Now it's a matter of, what do I do to communicate with them? We can help with the messaging. Chase, you mentioned the vehicles, right? We got email, text, ringless voicemail. We also do handwritten letters, that personalization at scale that now allows that engagement strategy that is more predictable, much more scalable, and ultimately a lot more transferable when you now have converted this database. We all mentioned the data that's flowing through it. There's a tremendous amount of information there for everybody. And now it's just a fine-tuned engine that drives, so buy more leads, nurture those leads, convert leads, and you have this really well-oiled cyclical effect within your database.
And make them smart. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by all the data stuff. And, the only thing that you wish for, and I know it's not possible, but I always wonder about the why. Again, this person's scoring 100, what the heck happened? I mean, but it's pretty cool because you can see, like you just said, you're scoring based on all these offline. What are they doing outside of Follow Boss? What are they watching? What are they searching? What are they buying? Right. And then you're combining that with what we already have, and then basically just telling us, hey, great. These people are, again, you've got activity in Follow Boss. You've got your recently active list or whatever. Elena has got great smart lists in there, right? Which is good. That's I browsed, 4 houses last week and I've not talked to them in 2 weeks. Great. Then this takes that one step further and it's like, well, hey, this person's browsing all these houses and they're showing offline activity of a forthcoming home purchase, and they're on your nurture inactive list. Well, hey, let's get that corrected so we can not miss an opportunity, because then when they answer the call in a month and a half from now, it's, oh, I just bought a house. Oh, you don't say. Right?
100%.
So,
yeah, you got it. And that's where we work with every client. We analyze everything within the database, and then it's a living asset. So it's updated in real time. So as you're continuing to add data, your scores change, right? So if the offline behaviors are changing and we're signaling, that's updated, as well as all the first party information along the way as well. That feeds into, if you've done scoring, I did that previously. There's other vehicles that do scoring. Our unique blend of both first and third party data is what sets us apart in this ecosystem. So I know we're a little bit over time, Chase. The last thing to leave people with is just the QR code directs you to, if you want to have just that database audit, we're happy to have that conversation with everybody. And then you have those campaigns that I mentioned. We have 10 years worth of history on our end. So we have thousands of campaigns from whatever lead vendors that you've worked with. We're happy to share those. Elena, you mentioned, has some of these scripts too. We can inject those into whatever medium that folks want, because we believe that there's just a much smarter way as we're moving forward with the communications plans for all of our customers. So happy to answer any questions if anybody has them, but also want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I'll give you another minute or two. Any questions, drop in the chat or unmute yourself and jump right in. What I will say while we're waiting for anything to come up, next session is coming up on Monday the 19th. I think I'm hosting that one, actually. I'm not too sure on that. I'll double check my calendar, but that is all about automating direct mail with Mailbox Power, a service that I've used for a long time. That's all on direct mail. We've got another session coming up on, I believe, next Tuesday. And that is how to utilize your inbox in Follow Up Boss to a greater level with Elena, and she is the wizard of all things like that. So if there aren't any questions, we'll jump off here. There is the link in the chat for the waitlist for any of our in-person events coming up August and November. Make sure you scan the QR code to get the free resources that Steve was providing. And then all these sessions that get recorded, they're published on YouTube as well as the Growth Hub. So myrecc.com, click on the Growth Hub button, and everything gets posted up there in sequential succession, I think it's called. Right? In order. How about that? In order. There. So other than that, I think we're good to go. Steve, thank you so much for your time and what you share. It's awesome information. Hopefully everyone got something out of it they can implement right away to make it all work out. You got it. Thanks, Chase. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
See you next time.
Bye.